Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Let's look at the Afghanistan flank of the Obama regime in big trouble. Senator Russ Feingold of Wisconsin, maverick Democrat, someone with some streak of moral independence, not simply a party line voter like so many of these Democrats, has demanded a timetable for the U.S. to get out of Afghanistan. Senator Feingold, for the first time, raising a objection inside the Congress, inside the Senate, to the Obama warmonger policy. And this could be very interesting. Obviously, if you're looking around for somebody to challenge Obama in the Democratic primaries, Feingold may be the one. This is somebody who bucked the party on a number of points over the last decade or so. And you remember, he was rather hard on Clinton, which, even though the specifics might not have been valid, it does show an independent streak. What we're going to need is somebody like Eugene McCarthy, Bobby Kennedy in 1968, challenging LBJ on the Vietnam War, or, indeed, Teddy Kennedy, who needs to be honored most of all for the best thing he ever did in his life, which was to challenge Carter. And indeed, if it had not been for the Chappaquiddick baggage, Teddy Kennedy might well have taken the nomination away from Carter. He might have won. He might have defeated the reactionary drooler Reagan. And, of course, Reagan was simply a front for Bush the Elder, who ran that administration and all of its filthy covert operations. So no Reagan, no Bush the Elder, no Bush the Elder, no Bush the Younger. So a whole trail of tears under these reactionary monsters from the Republican Party can be traced back to the attempt of Carter to win a second term. That Carter heritage could have been cut short and the door closed in the face of the raving reactionary Reagan, the man who tripled the U.S. public debt in only 8 years with his tax cuts for the rich. This is now the guy you're supposed to, if you go to a Tea Party, you're supposed to give an oath of allegiance to Reagan for fiscal responsibility. This is a guy who revamped the tax system to shift the tax burden off the rich and onto the working poor through cutting the upper income tax rates and increasing the payroll tax rates. This was all engineered by Greenspan of the Federal Reserve under Reagan. So we could have avoided all that. So that's why Feingold deserves some attention. Now, there are others. Some people say Jerry Brown out in California, if he becomes governor of California, he might automatically be subjected to a draft in the Democratic Party. Possible. We've got former Republican Senator Chuck Hagel writing an op-ed in the Washington Post talking about the limits of force that really this model that's being pursued by the Obama regime in Afghanistan is simply impossible. And the idea here is that he recommends that Obama should go back and listen to the recordings of telephone conversations of Richard Russell of Georgia, Senator Richard Russell of Georgia, talking to Lyndon B. Johnson. And Russell tells LBJ that this is simply an impossible war. It's not worth it. And LBJ says he's going to lose the war, but he's not going to cut and run. So basically the entire thing over the vanity of LBJ, obviously stoked by the Harvard boutique by McGeorge Bundy, William Bundy, and the rest of these characters. So Feingold says he wants a timetable. Hagel says beware the limits of force. And we've got Will the Shill. This is actually very, very interesting. We've got George Will. This is a different kind of conservative. He's not really a traditional neocon. He's got links back to the Buckley Circle, the National Review gang, but he's also just a kind of international elitist. He has a big connection to the Hollinger Corporation, to Lord Conrad Black, now moldering in prison. But Will the Shill, an elitist conservative reactionary, not a conservative at all, really, a right-wing radical, a right-wing extremist. But Will the Shill does two interesting things. One is an op-ed on Tuesday, September 1st, saying time to get out of Afghanistan. And what should you do? You should do what you can do from offshore, use intelligence, drones, cruise missiles, airstrikes, and small, potent special forces units. Concentrate on the 1,500-mile border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. That's a nation that really matters. And he quotes de Gaulle saying that Bismarck was correct to stop the German armies of von Moltke short of Paris in 1870. Sometimes genius consists of knowing when to stop. Well, Obama's not a genius. He doesn't know when to stop. So that's one interesting thing from Will de Schille. The other thing that Will de Schille contributes in his second column of the week is indeed that it's time to get out of Iraq as well. How interesting. Will de Schille says that you're going to have, you got the U.S. pulling out of the Iraqi cities on June 30th. And in that time, you've got 725 Iraqis killed in direct attacks in the cities. So 50,000 U.S. troops are going to stay there basically indefinitely. And this is simply impossible. So he says, if Maliki, the puppet prime minister, tries to strut and preen himself as the anti-U.S. voice and has a referendum on whether the U.S. should stay there, Will de Schille says the United States should treat this as a Dirty Harry moment. Make our day. Kick us out. We'll be glad to leave. Now, too bad if you died in this war that Will de Schille had been supporting. But you get the idea, right? Precipitate withdrawal from Iraq and precipitous withdrawal from Afghanistan. This looks like a strategy to have the two borders of Iran turned into absolute civil war and chaos. Maybe in Iraq it'll be the Shiites fighting the Sunnis if religion plays the main role, but if Iraqi nationalism plays the same role, maybe you can get Shiites and Sunnis to fight the Kurds. So you can have all kinds of scenarios. And these are countries where the civil wars tend to become kind of a maelstrom into which the bordering states, the Syrias, the Turkeys, for God knows, and others, right? Syria, Turkey, and others get sucked in by this maelstrom of civil war. So chaos and confusion, scorched earth, right? Après nous, le déluge. If U.S. imperialism is forced out of the Afghan and Iraq theaters because of economic breakdown and so forth, and because the Europeans will defect and the Canadians too, then what fills the vacuum? It might be Russia, it might be China. Will de Schille says, no, in effect, we want civil war and indeed international war to fill the space. So that's what you're getting. Now, Obama's cratering. A lot of people attribute this to the fact that senior citizens, Medicare beneficiaries, are up in arms because Obama is planning to cut $500 billion to $600 billion out of Medicare. And that's not just corporate welfare for pharmaceutical companies under Mad Dog Bush's, his prescription drug plan. This cuts right down to the bone, and we got various op-eds commenting on that if you really try to play people for suckers, then they don't like it. Charles Krauthammer, the neocon, getting back on this, saying Obama's lost the trust of the people, goes around saying the system is totally broken and it needs radical reconstruction, but nothing will change for you. Medicare is bankrupting the country, says Obama, but $500 billion in cuts will have no effect on care. When ordinary citizens understand they're being played for fools, they bristle. I think that's the main element in the breakdown of Obama, that older people have now turned against him because they can see that he wants to loot Medicare. The older people want to maintain, defend the heritage of the New Deal and the Great Society. They want to defend Medicare. We'll be back in a minute.